Thanks for everybody for who joined on Zoom. We're going to get started now. So this PDP, for those who don't know me, I'm Dustin Rodriguez, Station 101 on C shift, and is kind of just based on things that are specific to Metro Fire's benefits package. With me, I have Sarah Ortiz, who's our payroll manager, and Alicia, how do I say your last name? Melmanchek, who is our HR analyst and helps. So they are the subject level experts that I'm going to refer to when you ask me questions that are above my pay grade. So let's just get started. I kind of got this idea, this triangle, from a financial advisor, and there's three things that they break it down into: risk management, wealth accumulation, and wealth distribution. And with those, they're pretty much short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. We kind of look at those like that. Risk management is things that we want to take care of right now because of a unforeseen emergency. So anybody tell me what the first one we have I put under our risk management?
Emergency savings fund.
Emergency savings fund. So what is the industry standard for what an emergency savings fund should be? 6 months worth of income liquid for income replacement. So let's go do some math. I know it's in the afternoon, it's kind of late, but it is day one for most of you. Top step firefighter, go ahead and look at your pay scale that you guys have printed out there. You can look at the new one, which is gray. That's just a printout from the TA that will be proposed in 2023. Well, what are we looking at? 8704. So this was the bottom step firefighter with paramedic incentives. So that brings you to 8215. Okay, so let's say you're a brand new firefighter paramedic, just got hired January 1. This is going to be our new contract. I already did some math for you. This is what, based off your hourly rate, one overtime day or a mandatory would be. So if you were bottom step firefighter, one mandatory, if you did 2 mandatory days, which is kind of what we were working for a little while, this is our gross income. Now, this is our nets. How do we find our net? Well, look at your taxable income sheet. So one of your other supplements that you guys have is a marginalized tax bracket sheet. You guys see that? That is that one. I'm gonna hold it up and see if I can get that on the camera. But it looks like a tax bracket sheet like so. Okay, so based off of what we know about our salaries, if we multiply this our monthly by 12, we're around 98,000-ish. So where would we fall for our federal tax? So 24% tax bracket. Okay, so marginalized tax brackets mean that your first $10,000 are taxed at, or your first $15,700 are taxed at 10%. So then that's where you get your $1,570. Anything over that 15,000 to the next tax bracket is then taxed at your next tax bracket. So not all of your money is going to be taxed at the 24%. Okay, so we can calculate this and we can look at, we're going to most likely fall for federal in the 24% tax bracket and look down below that for the state. Typically, where do we fall?
8%.
8 to 9%, just depending on where you're at. I've calculated 9 just to be a little bit more conservative. Okay, so if we have our 24% and our 9%, we're going to be at 32%, 33% tax brackets, right? So if we take our 33% away from our gross, we're going to get a net with our overtime of around $7,136, somewhere ballpark, depending on your deductions, all that, right? We're just using ballpark numbers. If you didn't work any OT and you took away each one of these days, we're now at $5,504. So this is you having a catastrophic emergency when you're on light duty, not working any mandatories, and you have a taxable income hit to you of $1,600 a month at a minimum. If you're somebody that works 4, then your number is going to be much different, right? If you have a spouse that contributes to your monthly income and you guys are in a car crash together, well, then you have to account for their loss of income as well. So if we're short $1,600 a month and we need 6 months of income, how much money do we need? So 1,600 times 6, anybody? Calculator? I know you guys all have your phones on you right now. Somebody pull it out.
He already said it.
It's around 9,700 bucks. Okay, so 10 grand. If you did that, if you only had 10 grand in your emergency fund, then you would also have no money at the end of your 6 months in reserve at all. So ideally, our goal is going to get anywhere from 10 to 20 grand in an emergency fund sitting there in case you have an unforeseen emergency. And it takes a lot of stress. One of the biggest things that's the IFF is noticing is that a lot of stress is coming from financial problems, right? Marital problems, substance abuse, all these things are stemming from finances. So having this nest egg sitting away, knowing that if a emergency happens to you, that you can handle it just like you do at work, you can handle that at home as well with your finances is huge. And so as much as I am a 457 proponent, an emergency fund for me is a higher priority for somebody early in their career than it is to start super funding their 457. I think you still need to fund it, but I think this has to be a priority. So it's short term. Life insurance is your other one. If that car accident is not just an injury car accident, but it's now a fatality car accident, what are you going to leave your family with? So anybody know the industry standard for what life insurance quotes what you should have for coverage?
$1 million.
What if I made $1 million a year?
Oh, that needs to go up.
Okay, 10 times your annual salary. That's typically what they say. Plus, depending on some other ones, they say $100,000 per kid for college and other costs and things like that. So if a bottom step firefighter we know is at $98,000 a year about, and we multiply that by 10, we're at $980,000, right? Just under $1 million. And if they have any kids, then we're at $200,000 if you have 2 kids. So that's $1.1 million for a bottom step firefighter. So a lot of people look at life insurance and be like, I might be okay with 500,000. Just pay off the house and that's it. But is that really enough? Are there going to be other costs associated with this? For an extra, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks a month, is it nice to have that insurance? Say you're already buying the insurance. Let's just do it right and make sure that your family's protected in case of that day comes. So life insurance, we have to have an emergency fund and we have to have life insurance to protect those around us that we love. Long-term disability. Anybody have any idea what that is? Raise the hands in the room. Who is paying long-term disability? You think so? So the good news is that we can pull up our oracles, and I'll show you later in this class how we can pull up our oracle and show where, if we're paying long-term disability, if it's coming out through our union or not. But on this page here is our long-term disability. So it's $30 a month. It's payroll deducted. It goes offered through the union. So it has to be, the applications have to come to the union hall, and our union hall has to get them and send them to our payroll to make sure that they're actually being deducted. But essentially $30 a month does this for you. If you get a non-industry injury where you're not able to work, right? Let's say you're not able to do a light duty or something along those lines. It will pay you 80% tax-free of your salary and your incentives. So it's an income replacement if you're out for a long term. If it's an on-duty injury that hasn't yet gone to workers' comp, you're at 70% of wages, including base pay and salary. Okay, so it's going to pay you up into a max benefit of $11,000 per month after you have an injury that's lasting greater than 60 days. So we're talking about substantial injuries. This isn't just you rolling your ankle and using a couple days of sick leave. This is something serious. This could also be something along the lines that you have an illness that's going to be prolonged, but it's not yet a workers' comp or a presumptive, something like that, where they can pay you your salary while you're dealing with that. So long-term disability is a huge benefit to have for $30 a month. It is an insurance, but there's another type of, I guess, protection that we have in the district internally. Do you guys know what that is? That also protects us for long-term injury.
Catastrophic leave.
Donated leave bank. Okay, so what is that about? Anybody?
You have to opt in every year, you give sick leave, and then the people in charge of it decide whether you meet the qualifications, and then you can go on donated leave after you exhausted all your leave.
Perfect. Hopefully that went out. But the donated leave bank is exactly what it was. It's intended for our newer employees that don't maybe have a ton of time on the books, right? And they come across a catastrophic problem or illness or something. And if you go onto a long-term disability, your accruals through CalPERS cease unless you do the 50-50 benefit. So we want to keep people accruing if they can stay on the books and keep their medical benefits and keep their sick leave or their service accruals, then that's what we want to do. And that's one of the benefits of the donated leave bank is all those things remain intact while you're getting through your problem. So let me make sure I'm not missing anything else here.
Just to clarify, you have to use up all your hours first.
In order to use the donated leave bank, you must use all of your accruals. Whereas on the long-term disability, you can split. So if you needed 48 hours off, right, for a while, you can use 1 day as your sick leave and 1 day on the donated leave. So you'll get half of your long-term disability payment, but you'll still be getting half of your service accrual through CalPERS, but you'll also continue to be on our medical benefits, which you're having a medical condition. That's why you're off. And so it's really nice to be able to not go to COBRA or something along those lines. So that's one of the huge benefits of doing the long-term disability in conjunction with our donated leave bank, because you could fall into either one of those. You just catch yourself for both sides. Long-term care. So long-term care is another type of insurance. This is one of those things that's very much a personal preference. And it really depends on what this is a retirement-based insurance premium, almost like a AFLAC style, that pays you when you file a claim when you're having like geriatric, like unable to care for yourself style event. So they classify, you pay a premium, and there's 7 things that they call activities of daily living. They're the basics: using the toilet, transferring, bathing, all those types of things. If you can't do, I think they're broken down into certain levels. But if you can't do 3 of the activities of just daily living, but you do need some help at home, then they're going to give you 50% of your premium. So depending on how long you were in the plan, let's say you paid your whole plan, right? We paid for this for 20 years, 26 years. They're going to pay you 158 days to have it, or $158 a day to have an in-home nurse come and help you with those types of things. If you need more care, then you get to this level here, which is like a assisted living facility. And if you're in like a SNF or something like that, it's up to $315 a day. Those facilities can be very expensive. So if you're a type of person that you don't really have the funds to super fund a 457 or have a really big cash reserve to get yourself through those really expensive days all the way to the end of your life, because you have no idea if you're going to live to 70 or 90. This is an insurance premium that's going to guarantee, almost kind of like an annuity, almost, where you have some guaranteed payment to help you with those costs at the later part of your life. So it really is a personal preference, but I think it's a good one to put in here. And you can see they have different payment plans. So if you're 30 years old and you want to pay for 25 years, you pay at 55 when you're about to retire, then you're $55 a month.
Do you reckon the price per day when you sign up for it?
So they do have, if you look here under plans, they have the $150 a day and the $130 a day. Essentially, it's just your return on investment. So what you get, what they will pay, it used to be $315, right, for the top here. So you just get a lesser dollar amount, but they're both good. The earlier you do this in your career, the younger you are, the cheaper it is, clearly. All right, so we've kind of got through our risk management, our early ones that we need to tackle right now. If you don't have an emergency fund, if you don't have life insurance, and you don't have long-term disability or donated leave, those are probably something you fix now in the next month. All those can easily, you may not get your emergency fund there, but you can start working on it and make that a priority. So our wealth accumulation phase, right? This is where most of us sit for a longer time of our career, right? 15 to 20 years. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to put money in our 457 or IRAs, 529 plans. We're dealing with investment strategies, and we're just trying to be good stewards of our money so we can live happy in retirement. 457s, I have a spot on the end of this presentation we'll talk about, but does anybody have any questions right now about any of these types of things? We'll get to the difference of like an IRA, which is an individual retirement account versus a 457, which is an IRS code for public safety and like government provided. So that's the difference between an IRA as an individual versus a government provided plan. 529s. Online, I put a flyer, and they're also in our bulletins that come out about our 529 plans. These are self-funded college saving plans for your kids. Money goes in there tax deferred. They can pull it out. There are stipulations to it, but if there's a lot of ways you can use that money. You can transfer it to kids if one of your kids doesn't go to school. If it's used for post-secondary school, the growth of it is tax-free. So there's a lot of good reasons to use it. It's for education. And it's a great way of saving for your kids with some tax advantages. The California one, the 457 committee looked into it a little bit, and they figured that the California one, there are some other ones outside that are pretty good, but being a California resident, paying the taxes and fees with those, it's really not any different than if we just stayed with California one. So that one made the most sense for us to kind of not necessarily recommend, but say it's a good one to go look at. Investment strategies. If you're getting to the point where you have an emergency fund, you're putting into your 457, you're doing some college savings, and you want to look into how to invest some extra money that you have, financial advisors are the way to go. Nationwide does offer free financial advising. They will really give you advice. The union is working on getting actual CFAs who are certified financial advisors to help with actually running accounts for you and making trades and those types of things if you want to pay for those services. The last one on here is another benefit offered, and that's our flex spending account, which is different than a health savings account. Because a flex spending account is on a year-to-year term, essentially, where the money that goes into there, you don't carry on for the rest of your career. If your spouse has an HSA, that's a good option to look at too, because those continue to roll on year after year. But the flex spending account is, the brochure for it is in the PDP list, and I have some copies over here, but there are a ton of things that this account pays for. So in the enrollment part of it, what did I do with my list? In the enrollment part of it, you can opt to get a debit card. So you put money tax deferred into a flex spending account, and you can use $5,000 for childcare pre-tax and $3,050 a year on medical expenses pre-tax. Okay, so that's, if you do the $5,000 a year paying for kids for childcare, that's around $1,650 a year you save in taxes on paying childcare with an FSA card versus taking it out of your check and paying your daycare center. So it's definitely, it's not a ton of money, but it's worth, why give up $1,650 a year? The other things that you can do with the $3,050 that are all tax-free, there's a huge list of it, but I'm just going to read off some of the ones that I think are beneficial for us. Insurance copays, insurance deductibles, LASIX, dental fillings, dental implants, chiropractor. You can go see Dr. Patterson. Cancer screening, breast pump and lactation supplies, body scan MRIs, birth control contraceptives, dental x-rays, dental cleaning and exams, thermometers. There's a whole list. But all of those things, you just swipe your card and it's tax-free if you have funded that with your tax-free deductions. So all those things that you have, it's a good option for us too. Why not use it? Questions on our FSA? All right, the last part, top of the triangle, wealth distribution, right? This is, you've worked for 25, 30 years, 35 years, however long it is, and now you want to be able to use your pension. You want to make sure that your living will and your trust is established and that you have a good legacy plan for your kids, and you have some tax planning. You have money in pre-tax areas like your traditional 457 where you defer paying taxes, and you have post-tax areas like your Roth 457 where those are tax-free when you pull those monies out. So you want to have different buckets so you can choose. When you go see your financial advisor, they have options to really plan for you. And that is, with that, we're going to jump into the pension part just a little bit. This is right from our MOU, and this is, I know it's going to be kind of hard to see, but there's four different pension benefits that we offer in district. Anybody tell me what they are? What are the formulas? 3 at 50. 2 at 7 at 57. Those are the common ones, right? 3 at 50, 2.7 at 57 are the ones that suppression folks use, right? But for all of our day staff and miscellaneous, there are 3% at 60 was the classic version. And then that changed with PEPRA to 2 at 62. So what does that mean? Somebody take a stab, grab a mic, take a stab. What is 3 at, let's go 3 at 62. What does that mean? Anybody?
3% of your highest year's earning for each year of service.
Okay,
And you can start drawing from that at that age.
all right. So essentially CalPERS uses 3 different things. They use your years of service. They use your total salary, which is only personable salary, right? Not overtime, things like that. And they use a benefit factor. So for classic, your benefit factor was simply 3% at age 50. It didn't matter if you were 55 or 57 or 62. As long as you were over 50, it was fine. With PEPRA and the new changes, age now matters as part of your benefit factor. So I'm going to say that age is part of your benefit factor. But essentially, this is what happens for the classic members. So it used to be really easy. At age 50, you can retire. You take 3% of your highest year. So let's say we're $100,000 was our highest year. So 3% of 100,000 is $3,000. We multiply that by however many years we worked. 30 years was the most we could do. And that's where we get 90% or $90,000 a year. Okay, so we used to be able to, the max you could get from your classic pension was 90%. Okay, we used to do some other things with EPMC and try to get that a little bit higher, but that was not part of the PERS calculation. Okay, so they just used those 3 factors. In 2013, January 1, 2013, they changed the pension formula, right? What did they change that to? What are we in now?
2.757.
2.7 at 57. They call it PEPRA, right? Public Employee Pension Reform Act. So they changed our formula, which they use. The new one, the PEPRA, right? So whether it's for miscellaneous, which is 2 at 62, or whether it's our PEPRA guys 2.7 at 57 with your safety, we still have a benefit factor sheet that you guys can print. So we have 3 different benefit factor sheets in front of you. You have the 2 at 62, the 3 at 60, and the 2.7 at 57. So we can pull up the 2.7 at 57. The other thing that they changed, our salary used to be in classic, the single 12 consecutive months of the highest salary you had. So if you got a pay raise halfway through before the last 12 months, then 6 months of your salary would have been a little bit higher. They would have averaged it, right? Or if you stayed the whole year after you got a raise, and it's going to be 12 consecutive months. They changed the total salary to be 36 consecutive months for PEPRA as well. So you had to stay 3 years after your, well, let's say you had our longevity pay. The way that our longevity pay is, our last step is at 25 years. You have to stay 28 years to get all 3 of those percentages to increase your salary. So those things change. Rather than just staying 1 year for classic, for PEPRA, it's a 3-year, 36-month continuous average of your highest salary. For the PEPRA employees, at age 50, you can retire. You do not have to wait till 57. They're just saying your benefit factor is higher the longer you stay. So age 50, here's your retirement. If we scroll down, your left side is your years of service. Okay, so here's our 50 column. Here's our 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, right? You guys have all those benefit factors in front of you. What you can do by saving your sick leave is increase your years of service. So let's say I worked for 22 years and I was 54, I'd be at 50.6, right? I can't change the fact that I'm only 54. I can't tell PERS that I'm 56 years old when I'm actually 54, but I can change it to say that I've used my years of service to increase my service years, which gets me 2 more years of service, which gets me from 22 years down to 24 years, and I get 3% more. Does that make sense? So you cannot change your benefit factor, but you can change your years of service. So sick leave still matters. the longer that you stay, your benefit factor helps, right? Because that's your multiplier. So it does help you to stay longer, but you can retire at age 50. So part of the importance of 457 and saving for your retirement is this. Let's say, let me see if I have it. Let's say I went to a top step engineer, paramedic right now. What is that salary scale show? The current salary scale? 9624?
624.
Okay, so 9624, you're a top step engineer, paramedic, you have longevity, you got your EMT, you're at $144,000 a year. Okay, and then you worked for 26 years. You try to get that last year to make sure that you got your most of your longevity. You get 78% income replacement through the classic. If you're a PEPRA employee and you did the same exact thing, you worked 26 years, but you decided to leave at age 50, your formula is what? How much do you get? 52%. So this is the difference of why it's so important for us in the 457 arena to tell you that you do have options. You can leave at 50 if you want. You just have to save and be able to accommodate the differences. And so that is the big difference between classic and PEPRA is if you stay longer, clearly, if you want to stay longer, you could get your income replacement up to 90%. And if you even look here at the bottom, no, you're not staying 40 years, but you can actually make more in retirement than you did through your pension. Or sorry, through your salary. But that's the importance of saving for your 457 early and saving for retirement. If you don't prepare for this, then you are forced to stay longer at the end of your career because you can't afford to retire. So we talked about sick leave already. It can increase our years of service. It cannot change our benefit factor. So there's some pension myths that are going out that I've heard around fire stations. So I just kind of wanted to address them. I can't use my sick leave for service credit. We already know. Yes, you can. You can't use it to change your benefit factor, but you can increase your years of service. 2,000 hours equals 1 year. How many hours do we accrue per month? 288. And if you didn't use a single day of sick leave and you worked for like 30 years, anybody know how many hours you would have? It's like 8,000 hours. But let's just go on this journey here for me. 288 hours a year is what you accrue. Let's say you use 2 sets of sick leave per year, 96 hours per year, kids, family, yourself, whatever. That leaves you 192 hours a year that you're continuing to accrue, right? If you worked for 25 years, that's 4,800 hours, which is 2 years and 3 months of service credit you're going to add on to the end of your, whether you're classic or your PEPRA. Metro has 2 sick leave banks, true or false?
True.
What are they called? What's the difference?
B is what's left over after you sell your sick leave back.
Perfect. So there's a lot of words on this, and I know in the back, you're probably not going to be able to see this on Zoom land, but essentially this is right from our MOU. And I'm going to go past this and get to just some bullet notes. So we normally accrue 24 hours of sick leave a month. Every year, I think it's August. When do you guys send that out? You sent it out to us a little while ago, the sick leave sellback forms. October, they send September, October-ish, they send out a form saying this is how much sick leave you can sell back. So if you have 1,000 hours of sick leave in your A bank, that's where your sick leave normally comes in, right? That's where it's issued to you. And you get 24 hours a month. You have, or 741 hours if you're a day personnel. You can choose to sell back 50% of that annually. Or you can choose not to sell back. And at the end of your career, we can do sell back 40% of your total nest egg of sick leave that you have unused. But here's the deal. I want to give you options so you're aware. Everybody's situation is different. Some people, it may be advantageous for you to save your sick leave hours. Some people, it may be advantageous to sell your sick leave hours that you can because you're still accruing 12 hours a month at a minimum. If we went back to the idea that I used 96 hours of sick leave a year and I continued to accrue 192, I still had 192 hours in my bank. That means I can sell back half of my 192. Everybody with me? Half of 192 is our 96 hours. So if I can sell back 96 hours of sick leave for the year, what is I just went down based off of a firefighter that's probably around a 5 to 7 year mark where you can get 1,000 hours in your bank. You're around $44 to $45 an hour. So what is 45 times 96? Phones, calculators, wake up.
Engineer, answer.
Yeah, this isn't pump at 150, bake at 350.
4,320.
All right, 4,320. Okay, so that's our dollar amount, and then we're gonna pay our taxes. How much money does it, actually, it says on the form what our taxable, they're gonna charge us the 24% and the 9, the 24 federal, the 9. So 33%, they're gonna tax us on this check. So what does that take us out to? 0.67, 4320 times 0.67, because that's what you're actually gonna get. You're taking away 33%, you maintain 0.67. Okay, so 28, it's like 28.95, right?
That's enough.
Close enough. So if we can put 28.95 into our 457 or an account, and we save it and we do it annually, and we have a 30-year career, so we're going to do this about 10 years into our career, so we're going to do this only for 20 years, right? 20 years, we decide to sell back our sick leave. The average stock market rate of return is how much?
Depends on the year.
They say.
Definitely depends. Historically, the ballpark number they say is around 7%. I'm going to shoot you at 5.5% for this forecast. So we're overshooting. You have more money in your account than you expect and less money. That's always a good problem to have, right? So if we do that, how much money do we get? How much is our principal? Our blue here is our principal, right? $60,000. We would have sold back $60,000 worth of sick leave through a 20-year career. It would have earned $56,000 in interest through that time, and we'd have a balance of $116,000 just in sick leave sellback if you started selling back during earlier or middle of your career. But what if you would have had that extra year or two that you could use for service credit and CalPERS? What is that 1 or 2% in your CalPERS going to look like? It's 3 to 4%. And how long is it going to take you to make up $120,000 worth of interest? It's going to be close to 20 years post-retirement. So selling back sick leave could be beneficial for you, but that is another benefit that the district has offered. Even though we don't have, even though you're selling back sick leave and you have a catastrophic event, we still have that donated leave bank and you still have that long-term disability. And so you can be a little bit more risk tolerant to do a sick leave sellback if you've taken care of some of those things through insurances. So I just wanted to put it out there as something that it's not right for everybody. It may be right for you. Another PEPRA pension myth, right? So we did the sick leave. There is no max on sick leave. And yes, you can use your sick leave for service credit. I will hit the maximum distribution limit for pension. PEPRA employees have a max. So not only do the classic employees have 3% at 50 and you max out at 90%, right? The PEPRA people can go up, like I showed, to 108%, right? That's where they essentially max. But there is a spot where PERS says they will only recognize $161,969. That was for 2022 of pensionable income. So if your pensionable income is higher than that, so I put this here with top step captain salary. This is our new contract. So this is kind of a 2022 number, but this is kind of our 2023 salary for next year. And I didn't see on CalPERS' website what the new number is going to be, but they do increase it. But top step captain, 14.4%, which is your paramedic and your EMT incentives, your 10.5% longevity or education. Those in the green pretty much get you to the 13,497. You're really close to that. If you had a longevity pay or a incentive, the new boat incentives, rescue, hazmat, any of those things, you're probably going to be about over the PERSable income for the year. The challenges for captains right now, in order to do that, you have to be a PEPRA captain and you have to hit longevity pay, which we haven't quite hit yet. And as soon as they do, they're probably going to do that because it's not an overtime thing. They're going to do that in the November, December timeframe. So yes, if you get late into our career in 15 to 20 years from now, we're really going to have to watch this because at some point you're going to hit where your distribution, we're not quite there yet, but we almost are. Just depending. And as soon as we get BCs in that rank, we're going to hit that for sure. So yes, but one of the advantages of this Also, you have to remember that our longevity pay, that used to be you stay around for 26 years, so you get that last 3. You're gonna have to stay around, or the last 3% for your longevity bump. You're gonna have to stay around for another 3 years, which is a 36-month average now, right? So you got to stay 28 years to get all of that 3%. But chances are, if you're a captain or an engineer, you're probably going to be close to that without that longevity, that last 3%. Something to consider. But we did learn the money, once you hit that cap, you are no longer paying into the PEP or the CalPERS system, your personal 12% contribution, right? So based off of that, your 12% of your salary is around, we'll say $1,600 a month. So that $1,600 a month that is used to go to PERS to fund your PEPRIS is now going to come towards you. So you have to be a steward of your own to invest that money. So or that's your income replacement, right? Because you're probably going to be around 70% of income replacement versus maybe 80 or 90% that a classic member would be. So that's where that $1,600 goes to fund that difference so you can leave when you want.
And that amount changes annually?
Yes. So when PEPRA started in 2013, this was like 128,000 or something. We have right around 130. So it's gone up over the 10 years. They keep going, cost of living increases. It is, I don't think it's the same as their distribution COLAs. I think it's different. I'm not 100% sure, but that does go up. You know, there's a COLA adjustment with that each year.
I think the IRS determines it.
Okay. We think it's the IRS determination that changes the COLA. But if you do exceed, that's what I said, then you get $1,600 a month into your pocket again, which you now need to figure out how to be a good steward of to save for your retirement.
Yeah, it's IRC section 401. So it's the IRS.
It's for the COLA increase or
Or what the limits are. each
okay,
month.
so the limits are the IRS indicated, or they're the governing body that chooses how much your amount is. The good news is when you stop paying into the system, right, you've hit that $161,000 a year cap, your years of service still continue accruing. So just because you're not paying your dividends in there, it's just you're not going to get that return, but your sick leave or your years of service credit continue to accrue in PERS. So just because you maybe hit that, let's say you become a DC and you hit this in month 7 of the year, well, you're still getting a full 12 months or your full year of service credit, even though that you don't need to pay this.
So this would start over each year.
Starts over each year.
Okay.
All right. So this isn't a printout that is on the PDP. So we're just going to have to try to get maybe a little bit zoomed in if we can and see if you can. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger, but we're going to review our pay stubs. That's about as good as I can get it. And Sarah, it is your time to shine.
Okay, so we're gonna review the paycheck stub that we have up on the screen. So I'll just start at the top, and then if you guys have questions, just stop me as we go through it. So it's a monthly pay stub. We're looking at February 1st, 2022 through February 28th. That's the period start and end date. The payment date would be February 28th, paid on the last business day of every month. So that's not necessarily the last day of the month. This base salary is just exactly what it says, just the base salary. So it does not include any incentives. This first box right here is a summary. So that's just a breakdown of all your gross earnings, imputed earnings, pre-tax deductions, employee tax deductions, voluntary deductions, and then it'll show your net payment. This next box is earnings. So this breaks down your gross earnings. So it's showing you exactly what makes up that gross earning box. So it's your callback, your EMT, education, FLSA pay, group term life insurance. So group term life insurance, because the district offers $100,000 life insurance, you're taxed on anything over $50,000. And that's per the IRS code. So it's based on your age, how much you're taxed every year, and it's an imputed income. So it shows as income because you're taxed on it, but you're not necessarily paid that. So that's why it's called an imputed income. Holiday pay, longevity pay, overtime, paramedic, base pay, and then the work period FLSA adjustment. So everything in this box is PERSable. So if you ever want to figure out your PERSable compensation, you would add up everything in this box minus any overtime. So callback, overtime shift, and work period FLSA adjustment is not PERSable. So you could add everything up except those three, and that would be your PERSable income. So FLSA pay, even though it is a type of overtime pay, is PERSable. It's CalPERS law, I don't know which section it is, but says anytime it's scheduled overtime for a 207K employee, which is the FLSA exemption that firefighters fall under, the law says that any regularly scheduled overtime is PERSable compensation. So that's why that is able to be PERSable. Does anyone have any questions on the earnings?
So I understand that's the FLSA, what's the adjusted FLSA at the bottom line?
Oh, I knew someone was going to ask this. Okay.
There.
So that column is super complicated calculation, but basically what it is I don't know if you guys remember, but you can go back to, I think it was 2018 where a lawsuit was filed, and it was a FLSA lawsuit, Valentine versus Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, where we came up with a settlement in the courts that said we would look at the way our contract reads and the way true FLSA law is. So what we do is we look at every single firefighter, and I should say every single suppression employee, and we look at it and we say, okay, here's what you worked and the overtime that we paid you per the contract, because our contract is more generous than what the law says that we have to pay. However, and it has to do with the holiday pay. So where that gets conflicting is if you don't take any time off. So we're more generous in our contract because we pay vacation leave and sick leave as hours worked. By law, we don't have to, but per our contract, we do. So what this line, it's a very complicated calculation. If anybody wants it, I'm happy to send it to you. It's with the courts, but basically what that is you will get work period FLSA adjustment if you take no vacation, no sick leave, and work a ton of overtime. And that's basically because we owe you a portion of the overtime for the holiday pay that's not included in your hourly rate. Make sense? Yeah.
What's retro? Okay, different
Oh, okay. So
adjustment.
callback and shift overtime is always going to be retro. And that's just the way our system, the way Oracle works, because we're always paying overtime the month after. So like on this, we're paying January overtime in February. So it's always retro because the system's always looking backwards for the overtime.
And the overtime is anything that you'd fill an overtime log out. So if you had late call and you got the 1 hour, Captain sends it in to the BC and they put it in, that is your overtime. What is it called? Overtime shift active. So all those numbers should be pretty small, or it's anything. Maybe you filled out a burn log for burn cadre or any of those types of things. Those are what the overtime, anything that's an overtime log fits in that overtime log or overtime shift retroactive.
Right. So if you go on deployment, same thing, you'll have another line for deployments. The overtime part of your deployment will say retro, and then you'll have your regular deployment hours for when you were regularly scheduled. So anytime it's looking backwards at overtime, it's retro. And then this is just a description of the FLSA and holiday pay. And then after, I don't know where this says, but after that, it goes down to the description for callback, FLSA, holiday, and overtime, just showing you the hours. So it's this rate multiplier right here. You'll see your rate in green, and it's times the hours. This CalPERS Safety Classic is your 12% that you contribute. So if you added up all of your PERSable compensation times 12%, that would be the deduction from your check for your CalPERS. I don't know where the thing is to go to the next one. Do you, Dustin?
Next slide.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oops.
There
Okay.
you go.
is going to be breaking down more deductions. So medical insurance, 457 deduction, vision, and then obviously the next box is tax deduction. So we only pay FIT, Medicare, and SIT. So federal, state, and Medicare. And then the other deductions, it breaks down in this box. So CalPERS survivor benefit, everyone has, we contract for everyone in the district to have CalPERS survivor benefit. So everyone will have that deduction. And then any deductions that you've opted to have, so firefighter burn institute, any of that. This is also where you'll see your house fund and then all of your local 522 deductions that Dustin talked about. So long-term care, long-term disability, union dues. Your Roth will also show up under here, and it's only because it's not I mean, it is optional, but it shows up in that box because it's not a pre-tax deduction. This next box is your net pay distribution. So it's just showing where your money's being deposited from your check. So if you have some going to a savings account or different accounts, it'll give you the breakdown here. This last box, we're trying to get removed from the paycheck stubs. We're working with our outside with our third party that we use with Oracle to try to get that box removed because it's not accurate. When the tax tables changed in 2020, some people were able to stay on the old tax tables and some people were able to go, or if they made a change were forced to go to the new ones. So this box is not reading accurately on our paycheck stubs. So if you want to know what you're truly claiming right now with your tax deductions, log into Oracle and look under your tax withholdings. That's the most accurate information. Okay. Anyone have any questions? No? If you are unsure what your personal compensation is, just call us. We can pretty easily give it to you. So, okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So two things that I want to identify to us too, that have come up just with our recent contract negotiations. There's two different lines here. One is local 522 union dues and one is SMFA union dues. You look at the difference. This is how much you choose to donate to our association. The $110 a month, which is now $114.75, that is your union dues. So you need to make sure if you are a dues paying member and you want to be able to vote on our contracts and such, for all employees that are suppression, SRP, ASP, everybody's union dues are $114.75. So you need to make sure that it says local 522 union dues and your dollar amount is 114. Or you're not a dues paying member and you don't get to vote. And the other thing I have highlighted here, we're going to dive into is our medical insurance, right? So there's a line item for how much our medical insurance costs. So this employee right here is $178.27 was the deduction for medical insurance. Everybody has this form. It actually looks a lot nicer in the printout that you guys have and that are on the online in the ops stuff than what shows up here. But it's going to be really kind of hard for you to see on the screen because there's a lot of numbers and I apologize for that. But pull that form up and bear with me. So essentially, one thing that yours doesn't have is the purple box, the purple column. Essentially what the district says is they're going to pay the third highest premium for medical insurance in the Northern California region, right? And these are all the plans offered through CalPERS for our medical insurance. Okay. So they said third highest. So they went and found the two highest ones, which I identified for you already are the red ones. Okay. It's the PERS Platinum PPO and the Anthem Cross HMO. So I identified those were the two highest premiums. We sit at that yellow or the green box there, which says district cap, right? That's the one they say they will pay up to that dollar amount. So for an employee, it'll be $1,100. For a family employee plus two, $3,053. That's for the new 2023 year, right? And they say if you're a Kaiser patient, so that medical insurance, the pay stub item right here was for a Kaiser patient. They were $178 last year. Their new premium for a family is going to be $190. Do you guys see that? Okay, so medical insurance premiums went up $12 for the employee. So essentially what happens is last year, the dollar amount for the Kaiser employee was $2,229. You guys don't have the old one, but this year it's now what? For a Kaiser employee plus two, $23.75. So the policy went up around $146 per month for that member. They're only responsible because the district says they're going to pay 92% of that, and we're responsible for 8%. So that's why the employee's dollar amount went from 178 to 190, 12% increase, where the district took the rest, $130-ish to them. Some of the other agencies in our area went to a 50-50 cost sharing option. So as this goes up, $146, they went 50-50 cost share with their agency. So as insurance premiums go up, their out-of-pocket amount is going to be much higher. So we have maintained the 9% or the 8%, the 92% district funded. And so that's how we're paying into our OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, right? So we're funding an account to pay for retirement medical. What happens when I retire for my medical benefits here?
Up to 65 years of age, you get to maintain it.
Nothing changes, exactly. Nothing changes for us the day that we're active or retired. This stays the same. If you have a kid that's under 26 years old, whether or not they're married or whatever, if they're under 26 years old and you want to keep them on your policy, you can. Nothing changes, which is huge for us. I will tell you that our brothers across the border in the city, this is what happens to them. The day they retire, they go from, let's say they had a family Kaiser medical that their district decided, and I don't know exactly what their premium is, but when they retire, they go to the lowest cost premium member only, which then goes for what would happen for us. Essentially, they'd come down to this Western Health Advantage, which is $760 a month. That's all they would get in retired medical. Ours remains unchanged. So the day they retire, it's just based off of that. If you're a Kaiser and you had just you and a spouse on there and you didn't have your kids on there anymore, it's $1,070 per month that you're paying for medical benefits to keep your Kaiser medical benefits for our brothers across the way. And that is for every employee. And so that's why we talk about our retiree medical benefits and why it's so expensive and how for years we've had contracts that have protected that. But you can see it's $1,000 per employee ballpark for every member we have, which is huge, right? And that is an inflation hedge because we don't have to deal with that as a fixed income in retirement. Right. So it's huge. That is, I just wanted to identify that's how when they send these out and there's hundreds of numbers on this thing, it's really confusing and what the third highest means. But essentially, this is our contribution. This is what the district contributes, and they just take away the top 2 and say, we're going to pay the third highest. You still have the options to use these. You just pay out of pocket for those. Anybody have any idea what all these numbers are in colors? Looks awful, right?
Periodic table, yeah, it's periodic table.
Periodic, yeah, it's magic. Well, pretty much this is what happens. The top here is a year. All of these different colors are asset classes, whether it's domestic, small cap, large cap, small cap, mid cap, international, bonds, emerging markets. They're all different types of things you can invest in the stock market, right? Groups of asset classes. This is 2002. And each one of these is a different year. So in 2003, this was the best performing at the top and the worst performing at the bottom. So if you want to just pick large cap, right? That's our Amazons and all those types of companies, right? Those are large cap equities. If you want to follow this and try to say that you are going to pick the best one each year, you're crazy. So the best way to save in your 457 is have diversification, right? So we're going to have a little bit. If we look at emerging markets, maybe this year it wasn't great, but next year it's going to return great for you, right? And so we're trying to diversify our funds so you can capture on the ups and limit your downsides. So that's the benefit of diversification, because you will never pick the best performing markets all the time. So there's 3 different options in our 457. There's a target date fund, which says, hey, I plan to use this money at this date. So as I get closer to that date, I want less risk. I don't want big changes in that. So when you do that, you're giving up your return on investment, right? So as you get closer to the end where you say in 2060, that's when you set your target date fund to 2060. You say, I'm going to use my money in 2060. As you get closer to that, it becomes more into bonds and fixed. Whereas at the beginning, it's going to try to get you more money and be a little bit more risk. It's going to accept a little bit more risk. So we set a lot of people into the target date fund when we sign up for 457 because it's a good way for you to diversify, and it also has a good risk assessment for you. Your other options are we choose a mutual fund portfolio. So there's 9 members on your 457 committee that choose, with the help of a financial advisor, the funds that are in there. So when you guys go look and see what funds are available to me, there's around 25 of them and they're all in different asset classes. We chose the best performing ones and the least cost, and those are the ones that you can choose. So if you feel like you know what kind of risk assessment you want, you can choose whether or not you want 25% of your money go into a large cap and 40 go into international, or you can choose all of your risk assessments you want there. Or if you really know what you're doing, you can do the Charles Schwab self-directed option where you opt out of Nationwide. Essentially, you're still in Nationwide, but you get to choose whatever stocks and individual stocks you want to buy. So $50 a year, and then you pretty much sign a big boy waiver that says, I'm going into the stock market myself, and you're in charge of your own finances. So we have different options for how much you feel like you want to do. So any questions on that? So your money, you choose that you put money in, whether you put it into a target date fund, whether you choose your own or you go in that self-directed option. We kind of go, I'm going to break this down into, the green is kind of like either the IRS or like the rules of the game. Okay. It's a retirement savings. We know that we're looking at retirement savings, but we have 2 different games. We have 2 different colors here. I'm going to say this is baseball, this is softball. They're similar, but they have different rules within them. The IRAs are individual retirement accounts. The blue is 457 plans, which is government provided, right? This is what our district offers. So you're similar, you're saving for retirement, but we're playing different games. Everybody with me there? So with that, you have different rules. For 457 plans, the dollar amount that you can contribute is $20,500 for this year, 2022. Next year, it's going up to $22,500. Okay. For an individual account, the most you can put in is $6,000 and $6,500 for next year. So the income, the amount that you can put into each of those accounts is substantially different, whether you go to the 457 or the individual retirement option. You can, Roth 457s don't have maximal income limits. So if you want to go to the individual side and go into a Roth IRA, there are qualifying income limits, which for a single person is $144,000 last year, or $153,000 for next year, and $208,000 if you're married. So if you have a dual income house and you're close to that, you can put into a IRA and you can be over the taxable income limits, and nobody's going to know if you don't have this planned, and you're going to get a tax hit from the IRS. Whereas if you put it into our 457 side, there is no income limits. So any questions on the IRA side versus the 457 side? So another benefit of 457 is you can take loans if you need to from your dollar amount, where it's going to be hard for you to take loans out of this.
What is the benefit then of the IRA?
So access is one of the biggest benefits, because in an IRA, there's about 4 criteria, but I'm trying to remember. It's if you've had the money in there for over 5 years, you can take out principal. There's access is really your main advantage for doing it.
So it's easier to get money.
It's easier to get money out of before, right? Because in a 457 plan, you can pull your money out the day you separate employment. If you decide to leave here at 34, then you have access to this money. You can roll it over, but that's the advantage of a 457 plan. Other than that, you really can't get your money out of there until you're separated. Whereas an IRA, you can withdraw your principal only, not your returns, until you're 59 and a half. So some people use it to fund so here's the thing. Nationwide does something nice for us. They have an IRA that they have on the side that they manage underneath on the side of our 457. And we have, because we're a big district and we have a lot of money, we can negotiate our pricing. So they said, we're going to give you the pricing that we have for this big plan that we have for your individual retirement account if you want to set up an IRA. So we get discounted fees and into funds that you wouldn't be able to get from the individual side. So some people use that to fund college for their kids. So you can put money into that IRA and only pull out the principal because you have access as long as you've had that for 5 years. So you get into some really good funds. That's really the only reason that you would have to do that. A big challenge that we have on the 457 side is people putting money into this and not recognizing the implications that there's taxable income limits and other things and getting hit by fees. So we just want to make sure that you're not doing the individual one unless you know that you're doing it and you have a plan for it, which is fine. And that's why we offer it, because we want you to be able to have as many choices as you can. If you're the type of person that wants to do that.
If you're in a 457 and you're close to that threshold for an IRA,
Mm-hmm.
as long as your withholdings in your 457 puts you below that threshold cap, then you can invest in an IRA, correct?
Yeah, as
'Cause
long
it's
as your
not seen as
taxable
income,
income
so-
limit. Correct. If you do the pre-tax,
Yes.
if you do pre-tax and lower your taxable income, then yes. But I mean, you have to know what you're at, right? And you can't get sent on an overtime deployment at the end of the year, like November to campfire, and then all of a sudden you're blown up.
Can that be an excuse to get us out of mandatories then?
And you
There's
can't,
something
the
that
thing,
might-
the difference is too, you can combine those limits. So
Hmm.
the regular 457 and the Roth 457, you can't go above the 25 or the 22.5.
Yeah.
But if you're doing if you can do an IRA because you're under the limits, then you can do the 22.5 plus the 6,500.
So if you wanted to save more,
Yeah.
you could. So I just had to put this in there. There's a lot of talk about NFTs and Bitcoins and things like that. And so the reason why on the 457 side, it's just not really endorsed is there's too much risk. Retirement planning is supposed to be safe and secure. And that market is too insecure for us to recommend any of those right now. So if you want to do those, that's your own. We live in America, you get to make your own choices. Here's the deal. There is no FDIC insurance for decentralized finance, right? So if Wells Fargo, any of our banks, Bank of America, Chase, any of those have major problems, they pay an insurance, right? Your money just doesn't vanish. There is no FDIC on NFTs. So you lose your blockchain account, you don't get that money back. There's no insurance for that. And so just having that risk for retirement planning is not something that we endorse. The other part of this is because there is not a current way to spend money in NFTs, essentially, right? Vendors are not necessarily accepting NFTs, whatever it is, to pay for goods yet. We are selling NFTs essentially for the value of American dollar. So it's essentially a commodity trade right now, right? It's same as gold or anything else that goes up and down. So until we can figure out how large scale commerce can actually use that money and we can use that money in retirement 30 years from now, that's kind of the plan of the retirement system. There's no way for us and no real drive for 457 to look into NFTs and decentralized finance. I'm not saying that it might not be right for you to throw on your investment strategy side. If you want to do that and accept that risk, there's just not support from it from the 457 side. Here's our nationwide reps. So the one thing that I forgot that I printed out yesterday and I forgot to bring, so I put it on the slide, is a checklist of things that I think is important for you to do. Create an emergency fund, 10K if you don't have it, or 10K at a minimum, 20K preferably. Buy life insurance, whether it's term or whole life, contributed donated leave. Invest in your 457, both the Roth side and the traditional side. Establish a trust document and living will. We have those flyers that are on there, and there's a discount for a William Walker attorney. 522 also has a financial advisor for a trust guy that he is vetting out of Vallejo or Vacaville, I believe. Also a good option. Both of them are very similar in prices. Consider long-term care insurance and review whether sick leave is beneficial for you in your situation, whether you want to sell it back or just continue to accrue. I forgot to mention one thing on that sick leave sell back. 50% per year. If you sold back for 20 years at that formula that we were looking at about selling back around 96 hours per year, brings you out to like you're selling back about 109 or 1,900 hours of sick leave through your career. If you do the 40% lump sum payout at the end, it's like 1,500. So you're losing 386 hours of time that you could actually sell. So you're 380 hours times whatever your salary is. Granted, the first years when you start selling, you're probably not going to be at the taxable income or the rate that you're going to be at the end of your career. So there is some of that there, but you have the power of compound interest. So we know that in order to sell sick leave, you have to be at 1,000 hours, right? Typically, that's a 5-year mark. So I picked a middle of the road number on the salary scale, that gray salary scale that came out. And I'd say, based off of the calculations, we work just based off of 56-hour work week times 52 hours a year, we work 2,912 hours per year. And then you can multiply that by that on your paycheck, what your hourly rate is to figure out what your gross salary would be, essentially. So based off of that, 37 hours times your 96 hours of time that you would, there's $37 an hour times your 96 hours you could sell back. You're looking at $888 a day for a middle of the road person. When you take your, when you take your taxes out of that and you take your 33% hit from your sell back, you're looking at $595 a day. So every day of sick leave that you burn because I didn't feel like I went to work today and you didn't really need it is $600 that you are not paying yourself for sick leave sell back. So I just wanted to put that out there that there is a cost to that. Your mental health is very important, but so is your financial health. And so if you're losing out on benefits, I think that's important for everybody to realize that there is a cost to just burning the day when you don't really feel like working, besides the implications to the district and staffing and brownouts and everything else. The other thing that I also, we kind of talked about it this morning, but one other thing came up. In retirement, there's different options through PERS on how you can get your distribution, right? So whatever your percentage is, let's say I maxed out at 80%. There's options in PERS that say you can continue to get 80%, which is the max that you can get based off of your factors. Or you can take maybe like 76%. And when you die, your spouse or your beneficiary will get the same, whether you're dead or alive. Depending on what your dollar amount looks like, that could be anywhere from like $400 to $1,000 difference. If you went unmodified and just took the most that you could and possibly bought a life insurance policy, so if you died right when you retired, your spouse would get a tax-free death benefit from a life insurance policy, that might be cheaper than giving up $500 a month for however long you live. So there's options that I just want you to be aware of that you can, and that's what a financial advisor will look at. It's called pension maximization. And so you can look into buying a life insurance policy early in your career so it's cheaper than if you want to try to do it when you're 53. So that was kind of discussed this morning. Just want to make sure that everybody knew about that today in the afternoon session.
Just make sure you talk to a financial person, because I think there's risk involved in that.
Yes.
So it's.
Yeah, Ed, you're
he's probably
paying,
more of a risk taker than me. I feel like there's risk involved in that. So I would talk to a financial person.
there's a lot of options. I just want you to understand in PERS, there's options at the end. It's not just you get this money.
Yeah.